Thank you for joining us. We will start in a minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Hate Bias Forum webinar series, In Our Own Voices. We are so glad you could join us today. My name is Nicola Smith-Key. I'm the Senior Project Manager with responsibility for implementing the Anne Arundel County Hate Crimes Prevention Program. Also on the team, we have Tiffany Akinbulumo. Tiffany is our Community Outreach Specialist, and Ziyu Gu is our Research and Data Analyst. And there's an Administrative Support Assistant position that is currently open. In Jamaica, we have a saying, "We're little but with Taloa." That means we have a small and mighty team who I want to thank for their dedication to the work we're doing. Before we get started, I want to quickly cover some housekeeping items. This is an informational session. For a focused presentation, we have muted all attendees. Also, the chat and Q&A functions will not be available during this session. This session is being recorded. A link to the recording will be sent to all registrants within a few business days. We have enabled closed captioning. You can make that selection at the bottom of your screen if needed. If you're experiencing technical difficulties, or if you have questions, concerns, or suggestions, please feel free to send an email to nohatehere@aacounty.org. For more information, please visit the Anne Arundel County Hate Crimes Prevention webpage at www.aacounty.org/nohatehere. So today we are joined by the Anne Arundel County Police Department, a principal partner and a crucial collaborator in this work. They will be talking to us about the state of hate in Anne Arundel County. In an ever-evolving landscape, understanding the dynamics of hate bias and hate crimes is essential for building a safer, more resilient community. This session will provide key insights on hate bias incidents, hate crimes, reporting, and victim services and resources. Our presenters for today include Assistant Chief Catherine Roberts, Public Information Officer Justin Mulcahy, who will be moderating the session, Corporal Thorne, Corporal Hernandez, and Police Community Programs Coordinator Camila Smith. I will now turn it over to Assistant Chief Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Assistant Chief Katie Roberts of the Anne Arundel County Police Department. On behalf of Chief Alwood and the entire police department, I would like to extend a warm welcome to every community member, leader, and partner joining us online for this vital conversation. The topic of hate and bias is not an easy one, but is one of the most important we can possibly address. The strength of our community is measured by how we protect and support one another, especially our most vulnerable. To anyone who has been a victim of a hate crime or a bias incident, I want to speak to you directly. Your safety, your dignity, and your right to live without fear are non-negotiable. An offense against you is an offense against our entire community and everything we stand for. Please know that our commitment to you is absolute. It is the official policy of this department to thoroughly investigate every single hate-related act. We will use all available resources to ensure that those who spread hate are held accountable. Our officers, supervisors, and dedicated liaisons are here to support you with empathy and genuine concern every step of the way. Thank you again for being here, for your courage, and for your partnership in building a safer, more inclusive community for all. It is now my pleasure to turn things over to our moderator, Mr. Justin Mulcahy, who will guide us through today's important discussion.
Thank you so much, Chief Roberts. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Justin Mulcahy, and I serve as a spokesman for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. This evening, we will discuss the state of hate in Anne Arundel County. But before we dive in, it's critical that we all share a common understanding of the terms that we're going to be using this evening. The crucial factor in these cases is always the motivation behind the act. Let's clarify the difference between an incident and a crime based on official department policy. First, we have a hate bias incident. Per department policy, this is a reported act which appears to be motivated or perceived by the victim to be motivated all or in part by hate bias against a protected class. The key thing to remember is that an act does not have to be a crime to be classified as a bias incident. It's about the why. Then we have a hate bias crime. This is what happens when a bias incident crosses the line into a criminal act. It occurs when a person violates a specific Maryland law, such as assault, vandalism, or harassment, and does so because of a person's protected class or characteristic. It is motivation plus a criminal act. And the protected classes specifically covered under these policies are individuals targeted based on race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, gender identity, or homelessness. Now, to show you how our department puts policy into practice, the rest of our webinar will walk you through exactly what happens when an incident is reported. First this evening, we're going to hear from a patrol officer about the initial response, how to make a complaint, and what to expect when an officer arrives on scene. Next, you're going to hear from an investigator who will discuss the investigative process in detail and how a case is followed up on. Then you're going to hear about community engagement and the victim advocacy component. And finally, you'll hear about how these incidents are officially reported and tracked through statistics. With that said, let's go ahead and begin with the initial patrol response. At this time, I'd like to introduce Corporal Deanna Thorne, who's going to walk everyone through those initial steps. Corporal Thorne, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Can you talk a little bit about how a community member can make a hate bias report?
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Corporal Thorne. I have been with Anne Arundel County Police Department for 5 years. 4 of those years, I was a patrol officer in our Western District. I currently work with our Youth and Victim Engagement Services unit, where I work directly with our community and with the youth in our community. My goal for this webinar as a patrol officer is to ensure that you feel empowered to make a report. As we are living in this world, you may feel uneasy or uncomfortable to make a police report or even speak with a police officer. Please know that we are here to help and to listen. Your voice matters and you deserve to be heard. Now, you may ask, how do I report a hate crime or a hate bias incident? For that, while filing a police report for a hate crime or a hate bias incident, it really doesn't have to be hard. While it may be scary, I want you to be able to use your voice and advocate for yourself. There is no shame in asking for help, even to make a police report. If you are a victim of a hate bias incident or a crime, contact the police. We won't know that you're a victim unless you contact us or tell a trusted person who is willing to help you take the precautionary steps to make a police report. Also, you might think there's only one way in contacting police, but there are multiple ways. Here are a few ways you can contact and report a hate bias crime or incident. If it's an emergency and you are in immediate danger, of course, contact 911. If you are no longer in an immediate danger or have a current emergency, you can contact our non-emergency number. When you contact 911 or even the non-emergency number, you are first speaking with the call taker. The call taker will ask you questions such as what happened, where are you located, are you currently on scene where the incident occurred, what is your name, where is the suspect, and do you need any medical attention, and so forth. Once the call taker collects all the information from you, the call is generated and a dispatcher then dispatches the call to a patrol officer, which is me, and it'll be dispatched based on your location provided. A call can only be generated if you would like to speak or see an officer at that very moment. Anne Arundel County is broken up in 4 districts: Northern, Eastern, Western, and Southern. If you don't feel comfortable for an officer to come out to your residence or even the location as to where it occurred because you're either scared or you would like some privacy, you can always go to our nearest police station and report the incident. You don't have to go to your respective district based on where you live. You can go anywhere. So, for example, if the incident happened in Western District, but you live in Southern District, you don't have to go all the way down to Southern District to make that report. You can head right to Western District. The address for each district is listed on your screen that you see. When you arrive at the police station, there's a desk officer always there. Even if you have just a few questions, or you just want to know about your rights, or you're just not sure what to ask, an officer will be there to assist you. Now, let me walk you through what happens once I receive the call from my dispatcher. When I receive the call from my dispatcher, I respond immediately. If there is an immediate danger where a weapon is involved or there are significant injuries, I will be arriving with lights and sirens. If not, I will still be there immediately and as safely as possible. Through all this, you think my safety and my well-being, that's important, right? So once I arrive on scene, I have to scan the area to see what I have while also remembering the notes that my dispatcher gave me before my arrival. I understand that scenes can be very hectic and sometimes they can also be neutral, but I will ensure you that you will be safe. If there is an injury, we will tend to that injured person until the fire department arrives to provide further medical assistance. Now, an investigation, you always and we will always be professional during that time. Once the scene is safe and secure, we continue our investigation. The investigation involves speaking to the victim or victims and suspect if the suspect is still on scene. If the suspect is not on scene, I will ask the victim or any witnesses to provide the best description as possible so that I can relay the information to my side partners who are either on their way or currently on scene. If the suspect is still in the area or we believe for that person to be in the area, a canvass will be done in attempts to locate the suspect. I would also speak with any witnesses who stayed on scene. Another important step to our investigation is finding and preserving any evidence that we may find. We have markers that's provided as needed to identify any evidence until our evidence collection unit arrives, which you may hear is ECU. All information and parties involved will be provided a case number. That case number will be used to identify your incident specifically and can also be used if you need to get any updates or copies of your police report. We want to reassure you that we handle your case with the seriousness and dedication, ensuring all protocols are followed. When it comes to a detailed report, you may say, what is in this detailed report? When it comes to writing a police report for a hate bias incident or even a crime, a report will always be documented. Please know that there is nothing too small to report, and all details that's provided will be included. To ensure that all information is fresh and accurate, to give you also just the ease of mind, the patrol officer has to complete their report by the end of their tour of duty. So if I start at 3 o'clock and the incident happens at 3 o'clock, I have into the tour of my duty to complete that report. Once the report is completed, it is approved by a supervisor, and then it's forwarded to our district detectives who will continue the investigation. Now, based on the circumstances of the case, such as if the case becomes a homicide, that is also a hate crime, our Criminal Investigation Division would be in charge of that case, which also is our CID. Throughout this entire seminar, you're going to hear about compassion and empathy. Compassion and empathy is very important. To anyone that has been a victim, I want to say I am truly sorry for what you have experienced. No one should ever be targeted or feel unsafe because of who they are, what they believe, or whom they love. We know that calling the police can be very stressful, and you may feel lost on what to do. We are here to listen, and we want you to feel safe enough to tell us what happened. We are here to support you, not to judge you. You don't have to go through this alone. Your courage in coming forward is deeply respected. As a victim, you may think, what are my rights? And how do I figure out what my rights are? Well, while you're on scene, an officer will provide a victim witness pamphlet. This pamphlet is just not for victims or someone that has been going through this, but it is for anyone who's actually witnessed a hate bias incident or even a crime. The pamphlet includes a list of different things, a bullet point list of your rights as a victim, how to get a peace or protective order, and lastly, phone numbers to resources and state's attorneys based in your county. Now let's talk about what some rights are as a victim that you may have. So for some examples, your rights are being notified of our crisis intervention and our counseling services, which is our crisis intervention team known as CIT. Also being notified of court hearings and offender custody status. Also, you also be known or being told of notifications of domestic violence programs and many more. Now, when it comes to a peace or protective order, there's two different things. There's a peace order and there's a protective order. In that pamphlet, there's an explanation as to which order to file based on your acquaintance with the suspect or person involved with the hate bias incident or crime. It also provides the address in which courthouse to attend when applying for a peace order or a protective order. Lastly, the phone numbers that you will see, our categories also include numbers for child abuse services, domestic violence services, legal services, juvenile school violence resources, sexual assault resources, and many more. Now, for Anne Arundel County, of course, there's one state's attorney's number. But if you have to deal with anybody else in Maryland, when it comes to state's attorneys, there's a list of numbers there as well. This pamphlet is a great resource to have. Now, as I come to a close, I want to speak to the victims or anyone that has been a part of a hate bias incident or crime. I understand how upsetting and painful it can be to be a target of hateful or biased behavior. It is important to note that we respond to many hate bias incidents that do not rise to the level of a crime. This often involves a suspect using negative or intolerant words. While we understand that language is very hurtful, it is often protected by the U.S. Constitution guarantee of free speech. I want you to know that an official police report will still be taken. This is to ensure that it is reported to our state police and our federal partners, such as FBI, for tracking purposes. Remember that your story matters and you have the right to tell it. Your safety, dignity, and peace of mind matters to us. Thank you for listening.
Corporal Thorne, thank you so much. That was a very thorough presentation, packed with a lot of great information. You know, we understand you walked everyone through sort of start to finish how to report a hate bias incident. You know, that can be overwhelming at times, but why is it important for individuals to know their rights and to be able to have this walk through, you know, step by step? Why is it so important?
Of course. It is important to walk victims through what to do step by step because they deserve to be informed, supported, and treated with respect throughout this entire process. The process can be very overwhelming, it can be scary, but it's very doable. We want to make sure that every step that is being taken properly and to give them the best chance to gather accurate information. To be honest, assisting with step by step is never a problem. Also, I believe that it helps the victim regain a sense of control and confidence after something that have left them feeling very powerless. So we just want people to know that we are here to help you to walk through step by step, and that we are here.
Thank you so much for that thoughtful response. I want to ask a couple more questions. One of the themes tonight that our audience is going to hear about along the lines of this topic is empathy and compassion and trust. Why is empathy and compassion specifically so important in a situation like this?
Of course. In Academy, we were always told that when it comes to when someone contacts the police, they're often living the worst day of their lives. That stuck with me because your life can literally change in the blink of an eye. Showing empathy and compassion is always the right thing to do. There shouldn't be any stipulations put in place to determine whether I or any other officer that you come in contact with should not show you sympathy or empathy or compassion during this time. I took an oath, and all the officers took an oath to protect you and not to judge you, to be impartial and not biased. As a victim or even a witness, I have to understand that they just went through something that can leave a lasting impact. And a person will always remember how you treated them during that time of vulnerability. So we just want people to really know that your vulnerability is safe with us, and we will take it seriously.
Thank you so much for that. And you talked about sort of that lasting impact, and this can be traumatizing. And that leads to my final question. You know, there are times where people may be hesitant to come forward and report something like this. What would be your message to them?
My message to them is that I completely understand that it can be difficult to come forward and report what happened. You may feel unsure, afraid, or even discouraged after experiencing something that was motivated by hate or bias. Please know that your feelings are completely valid. Reporting a hate or bias incident is not just about filing a police report. It is about making sure that you feel safe, supported, and heard. When you report, it doesn't just help us specifically with you, but it also helps us to know what's happening in our community so that we can respond appropriately to prevent any further harm, and also to be able to contact you with any resources that you may need. So please remember that you're always in control of this process. And our role here is to support you, not pressure you, but for you to understand and to know that your voice is important.
That's great, Corporal Thorne. Thank you so much. That was great information. Appreciate all your thorough responses, and hopefully the audience is taking notes. That's some really good information. And just grateful that you were here tonight. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
With that being said, we want to move on now to the investigation component. Once that initial report is filed, the case then moves to an investigator. Here to explain that process is PFC Virginia Hernandez. PFC Hernandez, thank you for joining us this evening. Can you walk our audience through that investigative process?
Of course. Thank you, Justin. I'm very honored to be here today and to be part of this important presentation. A little bit about myself. I have been part of this police department for approximately 5 years now as a patrol officer. During this time, I had the honor to be part of the Criminal Investigation Division as a detective, and I was able to learn the procedure for an investigation. But before I continue, I want to say that all the cases that we receive, we treat with compassion and empathy, and we keep in mind the well-being of the victim or the victims involved in the incident. So the first step to an investigation is to review the main police report thoroughly and look at every detail in the report. We review the information that was gathered by the officer. For example, what happened, where the incident happened, when it happened, and why. We try to look for any indicators of a hate bias incident. For example, slurs that may have been used, symbols that were used, gestures, any comments made related to race, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or other protected traits. We also review the body-worn camera of the primary officer and of all the officers on scene thoroughly. Body-worn cameras are very important because they give us a clear picture of what happened when the officers arrived on the scene. The next step of the investigation is the evidence. The evidence could be any video surveillance footage collected in the area where the incident occurred. Also, any videos recorded or pictures taken on cell phones are important evidence. Another piece of evidence could be anything posted on social media in reference to the incident. Pictures taken of the scene are very important. For example, any graffiti, a message on property, or property damage. Depending on the severity of the crime or incident, We would check if any DNA was collected on scene or fingerprints collected of any evidence. Once everything is reviewed, we try to make contact with the victim to conduct a detailed interview. When the victim is brought in to do the detailed interview, the victim is treated with sensitivity to trauma and with respect. In the interview, the victim is asked detailed questions about the incident and if they have any new information or a witness who might have seen the incident. We try to obtain as much information as possible from the victim to avoid having to bring the victim back to retell the trauma they went through. After the interview is completed with the victim, we do a detailed interview with the witnesses involved. We try to obtain as much information as possible and any evidence that they might have to provide to us that will help with this case. The next step in the investigation is interviewing the suspect, if there was a suspect on scene or a known suspect. Before we interview the suspect, we try to obtain as much information as possible on the suspect's background. For example, do they have any priors that we should know of, or have they ever been involved in a similar case as this one in the past? Once all that information is gathered, we make contact with the suspect to conduct a detailed interview to get their side of the story. In most cases, suspects do not agree to an interview, but when they do, we try to ask detailed questions in reference to the incident and gather as much information from them. Once sufficient evidence is collected and we gather all the information needed for the case, we present the case to the state's attorneys to determine potential hate crime charges or any applicable charges in the case. Once the case is presented to the state's attorneys, we will be able to make an arrest and charge the suspect appropriately. Our primary goal in an investigation is to ensure that the victim or victims receive justice and that we are doing our best to achieve that goal. We have amazing detectives in this department working around the clock to achieve that goal. Sometimes cases do take longer than expected, but that does not mean we do not care about the case or the case was just brushed under the rug. Some cases take a long time because we're trying our best to gather as much information as possible to present a strong case to the state's attorneys. These are the steps we would take in an investigation.
PFC Hernandez, thank you so much. That was great information you just provided about the investigative process, really from start to finish. And you touched on something about investigations can be very time consuming and lengthy as detectives are following up on information and following leads. But that can be tough, right? If you're somebody that was impacted by a hate bias incident, you may be thinking, well, are they still working the case? What's your message to somebody who may just be sitting there thinking, what's going on with the case?
So I would say that during the investigation, the victim will not be left in the dark. The detective assigned to the case will be in contact with the victim at all times to keep the victim updated on the progress of the investigation. The victim can also contact the detective to obtain more information.
Thank you for that. And we've talked about empathy and compassion, and I also like to use the word trust because we want to gain the trust of the person that was impacted by this, and we know this could have been a very traumatic experience for them. So what can we do to help make them feel more comfortable? If someone's been impacted, are there ways that we can make them feel more comfortable during the investigation?
Of course. So when we contact the victim and the victim agrees to come to our office for the detailed interview, we make sure the victim feels comfortable by taking them into a comfortable room. In the room, we usually have a sofa or comfortable seats where the victim can feel free to talk to us about the case. During the interview, we want to make the victim feel like they have a friendly conversation and that they're not being interrogated.
That's great. And just one last question for you regarding investigations. What can he or she do if they were impacted? You know, if someone is like thinking, you know, can I play a role in the investigation to help out? Like what role can they play, that being a victim or a witness, to help the police department in maybe ultimately identifying the suspect?
Yeah, so a victim or witness can identify a suspect by providing detailed information. For example, if they have seen the person before in the area, or maybe the suspect is a known person to the victim or the witness. If a suspect needs to be positively identified and we want to confirm we have the right person, We can do a picture array or a photo lineup so the victim or witness can point out who the suspect is and positively identify that person. Also, ring cameras are also very helpful in these cases to identify the suspect if the victim or witness have ring cameras in their properties.
Thank you so much, PFC Hernandez. Well, that's all I have for your section, your portion on investigations. I'm really grateful for your time that you took with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Moving on now, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We want to take this opportunity to introduce our community coordinator, Miss Camila Smith. She's here to discuss the importance of our community partnerships and what resources are available to those individuals that have been impacted by hate, bias, incident, or crime. Ms. Smith, a very good evening to you, and thank you for joining us on this webinar.
Sorry. Thank you, Justin.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Camilla Smith. I'm the community liaison for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. And my role as a liaison is straightening the relationship between law enforcement and the community. I act as a bridge between residents, organizations, and the police department. Some of my responsibilities here include developing and coordinating community programs in between officers and community members, promoting positive interactions, encouraging open communication between the community and the police department to address concerns, prevent misunderstandings, and empathy, promote diversity, inclusion, and respect, and an organization of events to the community, helping them with resources and public safety. Now, I want to talk about why community engagement matters. When people trust the police, they are more likely to report hate crimes early, participate in educational programs, and collaborate in problem-solving efforts. Now, let's speak about how I can help you to make a report as a community liaison. We create a safe and supportive space to listen to you with empathy and without judgment. We make sure you feel comfortable sharing what happened, offering a private and confidential environment for the conversation, and we clarify the options to report these crimes, which could be in person or through a trusted advocate. As mentioned before by PFC Hernandez, we have room with comfortable chairs to make you feel more comfortable, creating an intimate environment that will help you to feel safe in a more personal level. No one will judge you here. We will treat you with empathy and respect. We want you to share what happened in your own words. We want to know how you feel and provide you all the necessary information to move forward. We know that after an incident like this happens, you need a mental support to understand what happened and why did it happen. Some may think that it is their fault, but it's not. You are not responsible for the other person's actions. You have your rights and you deserve to be respected no matter your color, your religion, or where you came from. Now, once you decide to report the crime to the police, my job is to help make the process smoother as possible. I'm here to help you filling out the forms, translating into your preferred language, and I can be there through the entire process, offering you the necessary support. When the first steps are completed, it is time for you to seek additional assistance, such as counseling for mental health or support for advocacy groups. You can be sure that I am the resource that you have to get the updates on the case. I believe it's very important to understand the whole process and where the case stands so you can know that the police is investigating and we will do our very best to ensure that justice will be served. That sometimes can give some peace of mind if you have any fears or concerns. Lastly, I want to give you a message to someone that is hesitant in report a hate or bias crime. I understand that reporting a hate or bias crime incident can feel difficult or even intimidating, but please know that you're not alone. Our goal in the community relation is to listen. We are here to ensure that every person, regardless of race, religion, language, or background, are respected and valued. If you are unsure or afraid, you can reach out to me or any trusted community liaison first. As I mentioned before, we can walk you through the process and answer all the questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. That was some really great information. And thank you for what you do as an advocate for community members in need. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you a few questions as well. And one of the ones top of mind is, why is it important for the community to know that you are there for them as an advocate?
Sure. So as an immigrant myself, I've been in their shoes. I know what it feels like to navigate a new culture, language, system. So I'm someone that they can trust, who listens without judgment and helps guide them through the right resources. Having an advocate reminds the community that law enforcement is here not just to protect, but to partner and uplift everyone who call this place home.
That's great. And second question, talk about the process of staying in contact with the victim and why that's important.
So when someone experiences a hate or a bias crime, it is not a legal matter. It is deeply personal and emotional. The first step is making sure that the victim feels safe and supported. After the initial report, I will follow up with this victim regularly, whether it's through a phone call, a visit, or connecting them with the community resources. Staying in touch shows that we truly care beyond the paperwork. It helps rebuild trust not only in the law enforcement, but in the community as a whole. Many victims can feel isolated or fearful after such incidents. So knowing that someone is there checking on them and advocating for them makes a huge difference.
That's fantastic. And the last question I have is regarding our law enforcement officers out there, our detectives, patrol officers, they can reach out to you for assistance at any given time. Why is that important?
This is very important because the officers know they can reach out to me when they have a hate or crime case, especially when there are cultural or language barriers involved. Like I said, as an immigrant myself, I understand how intimidating it can be to talk to law enforcement when you're scared or unsure if you'll be understood. So having someone who speaks your language or understands your culture helps victims to open up and share details they might otherwise hold back. Also, I believe that it helps officers to better understand the victim's side so they can focus on the investigation, knowing that I'm here to help in any communication gaps, in explaining the cultural differences and making sure that the victim feels supported and heard. I really believe that teamwork builds trust, and this way we show our community that we care, that we listen, and that we're here for everyone, no matter where they come from or what language they speak.
Ms. Smith, thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for the role you play here in the Anne Arundel County Police Department and what you do to reach out to assist our community members. We are absolutely grateful for what you do.
Thank you.
I'd now like to take this time to bring back to the panel PFC Hernandez, who we spoke to earlier about investigations. Please, can you talk a little bit to our audience tonight about a specific case you worked that stood out to you and provide the audience with some background on it? Also, as one of our liaisons, how can someone reach out if they need assistance?
Okay, thank you, Justin. So during my time as a police officer, I have been to many calls of service and have seen lots of different incidents. There was one call in particular that stuck with me. It was a domestic violence call. When I arrived on the scene, I made contact with the victim and the aggressor. During my interaction with the victim and the aggressor, I could observe that there was more to this call. We take domestic violence calls very seriously, and we do our due diligence to make sure we take all the appropriate steps to help the victim of domestic violence.
You mentioned that this call was a little bit different. Obviously, there was a domestic violence component, but what made this particular call different?
So this call in particular involved a hate bias crime on top of the domestic violence. After gathering all the information from the victim and the aggressor and all our observations on the scene, the aggressor was placed under arrest and transported to central booking, where the aggressor was charged appropriately.
It's great that we got the suspect in that case. So what happens now at that point? Like, where do you go from there to support the victim?
So after transporting the aggressor to central booking, I provided the victim with a ride to their family member's house where the victim felt safe and protected from the aggressor. When I dropped the victim off at the family member's house, I provided the victim with resources that could help with the trauma the victim had just gone through. I also provided the victim with the contact information of Camila, our community liaison, to help the victim through the process of this case. After a few days passed, I contacted the victim to check on them and make sure everything was going in a positive direction.
That's fantastic. And that's exactly that ties into what Ms. Smith was talking about, how we're walking there every step along the way on the journey with the individuals that were impacted. That's fantastic. And so why are these resources so vital for victims out there to be aware of?
Well, when I look back on this experience, I feel that if the victim had known about these resources we provide in the county, the victim may have reached out even sooner and the situation might not have escalated to the point that it did. I want to let everyone know that it is very important to reach out to us and let us know if you're experiencing a difficult situation. We are here to help and we take all our cases seriously. It is very important to keep in mind that whatever you are going through, no matter how difficult or uncomfortable it could be, please reach out.
Absolutely. And speaking of reaching out, how can someone do that?
So you can first call 911. If you're not comfortable reaching out by calling 911, please contact any of the numbers provided at the beginning of the presentation, or you can reach out to any of our liaisons. Our liaison for LGBTQIA is Corporal Stanley, 410-222-1147, or our community liaison Camila at 410-222-8730. Please do not hesitate to call and remember that you are not alone.
Thank you so much, PFC Hernandez, and thank you for sharing not only those phone numbers, which are critical. We hope our audience got those numbers, but thank you for sharing that vital perspective, that firsthand perspective. And again, that number for Corporal Stanley, our LGBTQIA+ representative or liaison, is 410-222-1147. And our community liaison, Ms. Camila Smith, our number is 410-222-8730. We're going to transition now a little bit. The final piece tonight that we really want to discuss is understanding how these individual reports contribute to the larger picture. So I'm going to discuss that a little bit. Every hate bias report filed by our officers is reviewed and it's tracked internally. So this is not just for our department's use, it's part of a state and national effort to understand and combat hate. As far as the reporting process goes, when an incident is officially classified as a hate bias incident or crime, that data is then compiled. We then report those statistics to the state, who in turn report them to the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, for their annual National Hate Crime Statistics Report. Now, this ensures that what happens in our county contributes to the national understanding of this problem. Anyone interested in viewing yearly hate bias statistics can visit Anne Arundel County's Hate Crimes Prevention Program website, which houses the hate bias public-facing dashboard. Just for your awareness, so far this year, as of October 20th, there have been 96 hate bias incidents that have been reported to us. For more information on that, you can visit aacounty.org/no hate here. So why do statistics matter? These statistics are more than just numbers. They help us identify trends. For instance, are we seeing a rise in anti-Semitic incidents? Is a particular neighborhood experiencing a string of racially motivated vandalisms? Are there places of worship being targeted? This data allows us to strategically deploy our police resources, focus our prevention efforts, and alert the community to a concern. If we see a potential organized group being involved, this data is what allows us to identify and track that immediate threat. Accurate reporting is a foundational piece of an effective data-driven response to hate. With that said, I want to kind of wrap up right now and take this opportunity to extend a huge thank you to everyone, specifically our Assistant Chief, Katie Roberts, for joining us, all of our presenters this evening for your excellent expertise in walking us through the department's response to hate bias incidents and crimes. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't extend a huge thank you to Dr. Nikki from the County Executive's Office of Equity and Human Rights for putting on this webinar series. But most importantly, I want to thank you to everyone out there. Thank you for listening and tuning in this evening. and staying with us to get this information. We hope that you find it helpful. Combating hate is a shared responsibility, and your presence here is a vital part of that effort to combat hate. We hope you learned some important information. I want to say thank you all and have a safe night. I'm now going to turn things back over to Dr. Nikki. Dr. Nikki?
Thank you so much. This has been truly amazing. If you appreciated what you saw, please send some hearts up for the police department. I want to bring to your attention a few more things before we finally say goodbye. Our upcoming webinar sessions on November 3rd, we have the Coalition of LGBTQ+ students lifting up voices of queer and trans people who have experienced hate and bias in Anne Arundel County. On November the 10th, we have the Jewish Federation of Annapolis and the Chesapeake speaking to us about anti-Semitism out in the open again, a community-wide response to hate. And on November the 11th, we have the Anne Arundel County Public School unpacking the AACPS bias behavior and language policy and regulation. Coming soon, on November the 18th, if you haven't registered yet, I'm encouraging you to do so. This is an in-person training, Defending the Faith, that will be held at the Office of Emergency Management. This is a partnership again with the police department, so please join us. We also have been developing a hate bias incident reporting portal. This is an exciting development. More to come on that soon. And mark your calendars for February 20th and the 21st of 2026. Join us at the Anne Arundel County Hate Crimes Conference at a location near you. Again, thank you for being here. I want to thank you for joining us. Together, we can ensure that Anne Arundel County is free from hate. Together, we can ensure that Anne Arundel County is truly the best place for all. Have a good and safe evening. Feel free to reach out to us at nohatehere@aacounty.org. Good night to everyone. Be well, be safe. Thank you again to everyone from the police department, Corporal Hernandez, Corporal Thorne, Miss Smith, Assistant Chief Roberts, Mr. Mulcahy, Captain McFarlane, Mark Leminski, Tiffany. I want you all to put your videos on for folks to see you who worked behind the scenes. Have a good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
All right, everyone, take care. Tiffany, we can close.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great
Good
job,
night.
everyone.
Great job, guys.
Absolutely wonderful.
Great job,
Great job. Great job.